Soon may the wellerman come, bring us coffee, tea, and rum. One day the tonguing is done, take our leave and go. At a fair thus on the town, her hair was blonde and this was round. Soon may the wellerman come around.
It's fall in western Kentucky, and oak leaves are fading from a bright forest green to a dull dry brown, while the maples are beginning their fiery flourish, displaying many shades of orange, yellow, and occasionally red. My local waterways, the Tennessee and Cumberland River, have dropped several feet as they make the transition from summer pool down to winter pool. Except for a few hardy sportsmen and commercial fishermen, most recreational boaters around here have called it a season, and that's a perfectly sound approach. Fall and winter present many hazards for boaters. Low water levels greatly increase the chance of colliding with a stump or a rock or even a house foundation when running anywhere outside the marked channels. Most find the cold ambient temperatures and cold water to be unpleasant, and they can even be dangerous. As the water drops, the many inundated shoals dry out and become like little islands, and the footprint of larger wooded islands expands. Island hopping is some of the most fun you can have in a small sailing and rowing boat, and my little section of the Cumberland is a great place for it. A rise in terrain along the natural Cumberland River bed has resulted in the formation of a series of small shoals and islands. Some are totally bare and some are pretty densely wooded. Each one is unique and I think they're all interesting. This fall season I set out to explore as many islands as possible on both the Cumberland and Tennessee rivers. I'll be publishing my adventures as a series of videos entitled River Islands. So pull up a piece of driftwood and gather around the campfire here on this muddy old riverbank. I have tales to tell, tales of a river sailor. I'd like to begin this series with an overnight voyage in the 15-foot sail and oar skiff that I built several years ago. I've been paying too much attention to my newer 12-foot skiff, and the 15 has been getting jealous, so it's time to give her some attention. We'll be exploring a cluster of islands near the natural Cumberland River bed, landing on as many as possible in the 2 days allotted and camping on one in particular. You often hear non-sailors remark how peaceful sailing must be, and that's true. It can be incredibly peaceful, but also, well, I would say mostly, it's a lot of hard work. There's a good reason working as a crewman on ships of old was not seen as a high-status profession. It was basically just grunt labor, and that's true of recreational sailing today, to a lesser extent maybe, and it's also true of camping. So when you combine sailing and camping, you can see where this is going. It's a lot of work, but it's work that I enjoy. And the work begins with a lot of preparation and planning, even for spending just a single night out. This 2-day cruise on the Cumberland would focus on a small string of islands running from north to south. Running before a north wind would allow me to easily hop from island to island, and that was the plan, to visit as many of these islands as possible, exploring each one on foot. I had spent a while tracking forecasts of wind speed and direction, as well as highs and lows, and predicted precipitation, and finally, I found my window. For 2 days, winds were predicted to be north, 5 to 10 miles an hour, with highs in the mid-70s and lows in the mid-50s at night, and clear skies the whole time. It doesn't get much better than that. In fact, I wouldn't expect to see that kind of weather for the rest of the year, so I jumped on the opportunity, immediately going to work, preparing my skiff, and all my camping gear. Since she was last seen on video, the 15 is sporting a couple of updates. A taller wooden mast with an integrated halyard block, and a new bobbed-off fixed-blade rudder for shallow water. This is actually the third rudder I've built for this skiff. The first was a deep fixed blade made of solid 2-inch stock, and the second was a kick-up rudder with a plywood blade, and both had their issues. Based on the testing I've done, I would consider this new shallow fixed blade to be about perfect. It has plenty of steering authority and hangs down no lower than the skeg, meaning that the skeg actually serves to protect the rudder. It's also nice that it's short enough I can just leave it shipped all the time, even when trailering. I've known all along that the oars for the 15 are a little too long, and since rowing the 12 so much, I've recently come to understand that they're actually way too long. They're also very heavy. If I had to guess, I would say the wood is some type of ash. But I've been reluctant to do any modification to these oars because they're original to my grandfather's Boston Whaler 13 that I still own. Well, I've recently decided that cutting a few inches off the ends of the blade won't hurt anything. It'll really improve rowing with the 15, and the oars will still work with the Boston Whaler. Compared to the navy blue oars used with my 12-foot skiff, these oars have very long blades, so it's not going to hurt them to lose a little bit of length. Pennants are now available at cumberlandrover.com. Historically flown for signal purposes, a pennant is that indescribable something that your boat is missing. They can help you read the wind, increase visibility of your small craft, and they just look cool, fluttering from the masthead or yard of a lug sail. You can have any color you want, as long as it's bright red. I have 2 styles of pennant now available at cumberlandrover.com. He's helping me check off my list. There's no need to go into excessive detail on my camping gear, but most of it fits into a big old 50-liter dry bag. Plus I have my tote that I usually take on day outings and 2 soft coolers for food and drink. Possibly the most important camping item is my inflatable mattress, a Thermarest base camp, and it is big and luxurious. That is a sure way to get a good night's sleep when camping, and it is a luxury because you would never want to carry it backpacking. I've mostly been camping out of a Eureka Spitfire solo tent, and I've now upgraded to a 2-person wedge style tent. So basically the same type of tent, a wedge, just a little bigger. With my route plotted, the boat sorted out, and the camping gear loaded up, the last item on the list is to figure out what I'm going to eat for the next 2 days. And luckily I have some good help on that. No, this is not for you yet. This is Fiona, chief officer of my galley crew, and she recommends a diet high in animal protein, really any kind of meat, but especially bacon. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That is not for you. The heaviest item I carry is also the most important, water. I expect to go through 3 gallons in 2 days just based on previous experience, but to be on the safe side, I'll carry 4 gallons. I like these basic plastic gallon containers. It just makes it easy to balance weight in the boat, which is really important in a small boat because weight distribution really affects trim. I picked up this pair of sponges to soak up nuisance water in the bilge, which mostly gets there as a result of my feet, because I'm often having to wade in shallow water when landing or launching the skiff. However, I've also noticed a small but persistent leak with this skiff over the last little while, and just as I'm about to wrap up my preparations for the trip, I started getting curious about this leak and began sniffing around, seeing if I could finally locate it. Alright, tomorrow is the big island hopping camping trip, and I've run into a little bit of a problem. So this boat has had a small leak for quite some time, and I haven't been able to locate it. Well, I've just found it. And it turns out she's got the dreaded rot. It's not a lot of rot, but on the only component that I actually shelled out the cash for marine grade, which is the bottom, it's marine grade plywood, 3/8. Well, at the joint of the lower topside plank and the bottom, got a small spot of rot there. My boats aren't really old enough for me to have encountered this issue yet, but all wooden boats eventually are going to face rot. I think it can be properly repaired. I don't think it's a big deal, but I'm going sailing tomorrow. So for right now, I'm gonna clean out all the loose bits as best as I can and slap some silicone caulk on it and go sailing. So that's right, my boat has a hole in it, and I'm going sailing anyways. In general, you should probably not do what I do. That's a good rule of thumb that I'll just let stand from here on out. Considering the plywood edge was sealed with nothing more than paint when I built the skiff, it's not really surprising that it's developed a little bit of rot. And a little rot is not the end of the world, but I'm for sure going to pursue some options for fixing this more permanently. And I imagine it's going to involve epoxy and fiberglass, as much as it pains me to say that. But for a temporary fix, my options are a little bit of clay stuffed in there from the riverbank, or some shower and bath silicone caulk, and I think either one is just as good. On the morning of the trip, I rose with the sun and spent a little time reviewing the forecast, and reviewing my route. I filled my cooler with ice and packed all the refrigerated goods, and then it was off to the wild Cumberland River. Well, it's technically not what most people would know as a wild river, but it is a river, and it's pretty wild to me. When I arrived at the ramp, I was surprised to see this turkey feather still hanging on. I had absent-mindedly stuck it in the rail the day before, and it had managed to stay there even through an hour drive. I figure it's earned its place, so I'm just gonna leave it be. I take it as a sign of good luck, and when it comes to sailing, you don't mess around with anything that could have superstitious implications. Rowing is a very optimistic means of travel. You're always looking at the distance that you've covered, and you're not worrying about the distance you have left to go. That's the way I look at it anyways. If the forecast holds true, 95% of this voyage will be under sail, which is exactly the way I like it, and probably the way you viewers like it as well. But first I have to row about 2 kilometers to reach the first stop on this island hopping marathon. The first stop is Honker Shoal, a small dry shoal near the natural Cumberland River bed. I'm excited to see it as I've never been out there. After Honker Shoal, it's all downwind, hopping from island to island, drifting carelessly with the breeze. Well, that's the way I imagine it, but in reality, trouble is likely to strike sooner or later. But absent a little trouble, it wouldn't really be an adventure. On the next episode of River Islands, I kick off this island hopping spree in earnest, playing the wild rover of the Cumberland River. I hope you enjoyed this prologue episode, and I hope to see you on the next one as we begin to explore this string of Cumberland Islands together. Pennants are now available at cumberlandrover.com. Historically flown for signal purposes, a pennant is that indescribable something that your boat is missing. They can help you read the wind, increase visibility of your small craft, and they just look cool, fluttering from the masthead or yard of a lug sail. You can have any color you want, as long as it's bright red. I have 2 styles of pennant now available at cumberlandrover.com.